The Infinite Regress, Why Karma Theory is Nonsense, written by David Lane, narrated by Tom Brooks. Introduction. If everything is painted blue, then saying one thing is blue is meaningless, since it doesn't stand apart from anything else. Color is defined by its variations. Likewise, any moral system that possesses a one-size-fits-all explanation is pointless, since morality, like color, is defined by its differences. That's a quote from Moral Systems 101. Randomness, or chance, at least has the linguistic advantage of conveying upon its listener the sense of unknowingness. Back in my graduate days at the University of California, San Diego, I broke my ankle playing in a pickup game of basketball. Using my injury as a prompt, later on that week, I got into a philosophical conversation with two of my friends about why such mishaps occur. In other words, why does the world have to be such a place where all sorts of bad things happen, from Ebola viruses to lightning strikes, to earthquakes, to cancer, to cosmic collisions with meteorites? Geisel Library, UCSD. Karma, moral law of attraction, reaction, described variously in Zhuang, Buddhist, and Hindu literature. Sin, to miss the mark, to transgress. A moral system valid for all is basically immoral. That's a quote by Natashi. My Christian friend, well versed in the Bible, explained that it was all due to the fall of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, where they disobeyed God and ate from the tree of knowledge. This is the original sin, he went on, and because of this, all of nature is cursed, and thus the imperfection of life itself. However, God, out of his infinite love and mercy, sent his only Son, Jesus, to remedy the situation by offering his own life as a sacrificial lamb to save the lot of humankind, provided that they repented of their wicked ways and accepted him as their personal Lord and Savior. My friend wanted to continue, but we knew his preaching would never end, so I jokingly interjected, "You mean to suggest that Adam and Eve are ultimately responsible for my broken ankle?" To which he, in a matter-of-fact manner, retorted, "Yes." Original sin may be taken to mean 1. The sin that Adam committed. 2. A consequence of this first sin, the heredity stain with which we are born on account of our original or descent from Adam. That's a quote from the Catholic Encyclopedia. At this point, my other friend, names have been withheld to protect the innocent, shouted out his disagreement. "No, bro, Dave broke his ankle because of karma, the moral law of action and reaction. He must have done something bad previously, either in this life or in the ones he lived before, and now he is paying the price." He kidded me, giving me my strict vegetarianism, and laughed, saying that maybe I ate some tandoori chicken in my previous incarnation in India, and now I was getting my just retribution. Both of these explanations I had heard many times before, and I found them unsatisfactory. However, on the surface, karma theory seemed to be more viable than the notion that original sin was instrumental to the current operating system of the universe, though the fact that both original sin and operating system have the same initials, OS, it does make me pause, if only to smile at the coincidence. But the more I looked into the concept of karma, the more nonsensical it appeared. Karma is perhaps the least understood concept in Eastern mysticism. One often hears spiritual seekers refer to a particular event, usually something tragic, as that's his or her karma. On the surface of it, such statements look innocent enough, especially when saints and sages from India have spoken, since time immemorial, of a person's fate in terms of the inexorable law of karma, the more equivalent of Newton's law of cause and effect, action and reaction, etc. However, there is a very curious problem in the haphazard use of the word karma that is, for the most part, glossed over or neglected. Even if we accept the idea of karma and its apparent universal applicability, we can never truly discern any one thing as not karmic, since the implication in Eastern philosophy and mysticism is that everything is karmically bound. Thus, karma, as a concept, cannot in any singular case be utilized as an explanation of some event, some action, some retribution. Or, if we dare to use it as such, we are more or less speaking gibberish. A crude example may illustrate this better for us. Let's say that a person gets infected with influenza. We learned about it later, and with our newfound vocabulary, we immediately say something like, well, that's karma. Yet, if we are to be consistent in our understanding, we must also say that everything preceding the event of getting sick is also karmic. Even our statement to the effect that that's karma is itself karmic. What do we have here? It's really quite simple. We have an all and all or nothing proposition that has absolutely no discerning force in explaining anything that can occur. Tautology, needless repetition of an idea, statement, or word. We might as well say that everything is caused by, I don't know. Because in a strange twist of phrase, if everything is karmic, for simplicity's sake, say everything is significant or has meaning, then nothing in particular is karmic or is significant or has meaning, since all karma is interconnected. In other words, if everything is significant, then nothing individually is significant. That is, nothing stands apart from anything else. Nothing has peculiar or distinctive meaning. We are caught in an intractable web, and anything we try to isolate one event from another and pontificate on its particular importance, we lose a vital chain in its ultimate interdependence. Question. It is written in the books that it is impossible for us to understand karma entirely until we reach the region. Mahaj Charnan Singh. Yes, it is not possible for you to know due to what karma you have to get this, and due to what karma you got that. You cannot discriminate whether it is new seed or whether you are reaping the fruit of an old seed. That is what I say. At this stage, it is not possible for us to differentiate. So we should take an objective view, a practical view. Thus, when we say something is karmic, we are unconsciously, no doubt, and not with any evil intention, of course, acting like we know something profound, and we are saying something brilliant. We are doing neither. We are simply illustrating how genuinely confused we are over the immensity of the concept. Because to truly understand karma is to realize that we cannot at any stage distinguish one event from another, and then extrapolate and pass judgment on that one ferreted out sequence. More simply, if karma is indeed karma, it is extractively intertwined with an almost infinite matrix of other sequences, none of which can be divorced from each other. The web of karma. What is quite intriguing about all of this is that if we truly understand that everything has meaning, everything is distinguished, let's say again, in exchange, then we could just as easily say that nothing, read, no thing, nothing at all, with an emphasis on the no and an emphasis on the space between no and the thing, has meaning, or nothing has significance. No thing, in other words, is karmic. Which leads us to this. If no thing has meaning, then we could just as easily say that all events are the result of chance. And by chance, I mean that we cannot properly agitate any of the event, and give is truly casual basis. Rather, we could only give it a probable explanation, not dissimilar to quantum mechanics and Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty, though I don't want at this stage to commit the fallacy that all things are collapsed to the same dimensional level of explanation. We are probably much more honest when we say to the person who wants an ontological moral explanation to why he or she and not somebody else broke their ankle or got a flu that we really don't know why such and such happened, ultimately. All we know in terms of moral ontology is that certain phenomenal events occur, which lead us to such and such a conclusion. But instead of simply stating your ignorance, or our limited point of view, or our basic statistical correlations, we instead say something completely inane. We say something like, it's karma, as if we have just revealed our brilliance. We have, of course, revealed nothing of the sort. We have revealed our benightedness. As we should know by now, nobody knows what karma ultimately is. Why? Because it is an endless circle. All actions are interconnected, which leads to the previous action, which leads to its previous action, which ultimately leads to the original initial action, which leads to the casual basis of being or matter, or I really don't ultimately know what, which ends up where we started, not knowing. The unattainable is attained by its unattainment. That's a quote from Nicholas of Cusa. Socrates, I neither know nor think I know. Thus, it may be that materialists are being politered and perhaps a bit more accurate, and surely a lot less arrogant, when they say that randomness, even if that chaos has some automatic, predictable order, or chance is at the bottom or top of the universe. Randomness, or chance, at least has the linguistic advantage of conveying upon its listener the sense of unknowingness. Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. That's a quote from Lao Tzu. All of this points to the fact that we use the concept of karma like a political weapon to justify what we don't understand, or in some cases to jockey for some perceived status of deep insight among a sea of naive humans. We act like we know something when we truly do not. Much better, I suspect, to say that we really don't know much. Perhaps the best explanation I heard for why I broke my ankle, besides the obvious one, you need to learn how not to trip when going in for a layup, came from my surfer friend, who also happens to be a medical doctor. He looked straight in my eyes and said, "Your question is a no-brainer." I then prodded him further to explain what he meant, and he said, "Dave, shit happens. Deal with it." Types of karmas as defined by Jainism. Karma in Hinduism. Buddhism. Karma. Buddhists understand karma as a natural law. There's no higher instance, no judgment, no divine intervention, and no gods that steer man's destiny, but only the law of karma itself, which works on a universal scale. Deeds yield consequences, either in the next second, in the next hour, day, month, year, decade, or even in the next lifetime, or in another distant lifetime. Karma in Buddhism. It is not that the universe may be under a universal moral law for which we have no present access, but that using metaphysical laden terms such as karma or reincarnation without supervening evidence is premature and doesn't warrant unnecessary dogmatism. Yes, they may serve as guiding strictures on how to live one's day-to-day life, but that doesn't mean that, by extension, that such ethical rules are transcendent and objective indices about how one should live. Life is hard enough without adding a speculative theological overlay that falsely imputes reasons and causes for actions that are, for the most part, completely out of our own control. It is both unjust and immoral to make judgments without sufficient evidence.